What's up, Wisconsin? Welcome back to the Inside Wisconsin Show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, J.A.'s doing the track stuff. I'm doing some radio stuff. We got a radio guy on today. Where are your travels taking you this weekend?
Yeah, I am in Eugene, Oregon, in a lovely hotel in Eugene, Oregon, as I continue to write my coffee table book, Staybridge Suites of the SEC. Even though this is a courtyard in the NCAA, it's all kind of the same thing. So we're just here. We're getting ready. The competition starts this afternoon. Finals day for the men. But that's, me. Like if I'm not at home, usually I'm chasing a track meet.
The guy on today's show, big golfer, also a big radio guy. He's been on the radio here in Wisconsin for over 30 years. Steve Czaban. He's the co-host of Czabe and Butch in the Morning. Brian Butch has been on with us here on the Inside Wisconsin Show. We wanted to just check in with him and get his take on all things Wisconsin sports from, I guess, the behind the mic chair on the radio this time around.
Well, and I admit it, like he was Bob and Brian, or what is it? Billy
Bob and Brian. Yeah, Bob and Brian on Laser 103 back in the day, yeah.
I thought that was the doubles team, Bob and Brian, or the Bryan brothers. I forget their names, but okay. Because I haven't been home I don't get local talk, local drive, local, morning or evening drive time. So I was not I have not grown up on them, though I am aware that they were a significant duo for many, many years.
So we'll cover that, where he's at today, where he's been, where he's going, all the things. Steve Czaban, the Czabe, on the Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Czabe, thanks for coming on Inside Wisconsin.
Good to see you, boys. John Anderson, I've seen you on TV.
Yeah, not for a while, man. We're coming up on a whole year that I've disappeared, and I am not mad at everything, everybody. So at first he says, Steve Czaban, I thought, no, the NFL Films guy has passed away. I don't know how you're doing this, but that seems creepy. But so I'm glad that we got this all straightened out now, and we're clear in my mind that we're not coming from wherever, Laurel, New Jersey, or whatever.
The great Steve Czaban. I assume, John, you met Steve over the years?
Just briefly in passing one time, and that's it. But those guys he and his dad, man, they made the mythology of the league, did they not?
Amazing, yeah. I had one of the most wonderful encounters that I was a little bit terrified of with Steve Czaban at the Super Bowl 1 year, Radio Row, and he's doing the rounds, obviously, and he comes up to me at the Fox Sports radio table, and his eyes light up. He's like, Czabe, and I'm like, wow. Because, I put Steve Czaban, boys, up in the firmament of media geniuses. He hung the moon with what he did. And so he says to me, he goes, oh, man, I listen to you in the mornings on Fox going into the, NFL Films headquarters in New Jersey. I love the stuff that you do. Now, when he said that, I'm like, well, I think I'm using a lot of your NFL Films copyright music beds, probably without permission. So part of me was like, oh God, I hope he's not going to rip me a new one. But no, he just appreciated it, because anytime I would get NFL Films mic'd up stuff, or their features or their documentaries, I'd play them up, because they were just so good. Yeah. So it's really nice to have him, of all people, just at least in passing, know who I was and have a nice word to say.
Yeah, that is great. I think, what is it? Homonyms are nice when it sounds that way. So, hey, can you do me a favor? Could you tell Brian Butch that Green Bay is way better than Appleton? Do you have a line to that guy? Because he and I, we're kind of not, Trev knows, we're not square on this at all.
No, we're not.
Oh, my God. Okay, so let's get into this here, because I'm a non-native, so I'm still learning the land. I know the difference between Oconomowoc and Wauwatosa.
Sure.
But I have not fully figured out, John or Trevor, the whole relationship between Green Bay and Appleton. I know they get smushed together in a certain way. They get conflated to some degree. What's going on?
Well, and he seems to think that because, when visiting teams come to play the Packers, that they stay in Appleton as some sort of feather in the cap that wins the argument. And my thought is the fact that they actually play the football games in Green Bay, where the stadium is, and the first name of the franchise is reflected. That seems to me to be a more powerful argument that my city is better than his, although they do have a mall, I guess, that people are fond of. But yeah, I don't know. He's just delusional is what he is. And I appreciate anybody that would like to defend their hometown. I'm very fond of everybody, whether it's Conomowoc, listen, whether it's Sabisky Corners or Little Shoot, I like them all. I'm just saying in this particular rivalry, there's not a rivalry to be had, and Butch is standing on very, very tenuous ground.
Yeah, it's that pride thing between the cities. So you, John, are from where exactly?
I am from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I am not a suburb kid from De
So
Pere.
you're not De Pere, you're not Ashwaubenon.
No, not Alloway. I am proper. See,
sorry
and
about the balloon launch there.
No,
because
people celebrate that. No, people celebrate, and they should. That is the appropriate response. That's usually what happens when I tell people about Green Bay. It's usually seashells and balloons, as Al McGuire would say.
All right. So Trevor, you're from Green. Are you from Green Bay proper?
Nope. I'm from Johnson Creek, Jefferson County, halfway between Madison and Milwaukee.
Oh,
this town is so small they have to identify the county. Otherwise, they'd just be like,
that's tiny for sure.
Yeah.
I think there was 44 in my graduation.
Brown County. No, they don't. They just say they're from Green Bay. We don't have to, but they.
No.
Yeah. I'm not a consolidated school guy.
So you've lived, Trevor, in Green Bay for how many years now?
De Pere, almost 20 years. We moved to De Pere in January of 2007. I got a job up here in October of 2006. So I can hear you when you say that you're not a native of Wisconsin. I'm not a native of Northeast Wisconsin like John is, but the divide between Appleton and Green Bay is Wrightstown. There's a town called Wrightstown, and it is right there. So if you are Wrightstown North, you're Green Bay proper and all things Green Bay Metro. If you are South, it is the Fox Valley. And there's not a lot of people that go across that line, kind of like a river here in De Pere, but we don't got time for that.
That is crazy. I had no idea that Green Bay and Appleton had a low-key rivalry going on.
A little bit.
I'm going to bring this right back to Butchie and say, what's up with that? Because your boy Anderson says, you better come correct. The Packers play in Green Bay. Other teams come to Green Bay. Stadium's in Green Bay. So what that you got a Hilton down there in Appleton?
That rant from him will be terrific. He'll be.
I can hear it already. Trevor, can you hear it already? Oh, God, gee, come on.
The gravel and everything. That's perfect. So let's jump in with you, Zabe. There's a saying by our guy, B.A. He calls himself a Texconsinite. And obviously with you on the radio statewide here in Wisconsin, you are known as Wisconsin's adopted son. So how did it all start with you in Wisconsin?
I guess I'd be an East Consonite then. East Coast, Wisconsin, favorable guy. It started with me when I was working at One-on-One Sports, a fledgling national sports radio network out of Northbrook, Illinois. And I got the job there doing updates in 1994. I got the job and I drove into town on the day of the strike, August 12th. 1994. So I drive into town. I'm all excited. I've never been to Chicago, never lived there. And baseball has shut down. And I'm bummed because I'm actually renting a place in Wrigleyville. And I was all excited, like, wow, I'm 30 years old. I'm going to be living in Wrigleyville, going to games, Cubs games. And I got this new job with this network and baseball shuts down. And I just remember it was like a rainy day on August 12th and baseball was down. And I was almost that feeling of what have I done? I literally have my Honda Accord filled the windows to the top in the back with everything that I owned, right? VCR, futon, whatever else I could stuff in there, some clothes baskets. And the feeling was at the time, we're like, well, they'll settle this soon. They'll work this one out. Next thing you know, boo, there goes the World Series. And it drags into next year. But went to go work for One-on-One Sports Radio Network. There wasn't many sports radio networks in the country at the time. In fact, ESPN, I think, was just standing theirs up at the time as a nationalized concept of sports radio. Sports radio in 1994 started in New York, WFAN, And I remember when they flipped the station to be all sports, the feeling was all sports. What are they going to talk about all day? And now that's kind of laughable, isn't it? Because there's always something to talk about all day. And cities have 2-3 different sports radio stations, right? So that was 94, and I came to Illinois and lived there for a couple of years. And while I was there working at One-on-One Sports, one of the executives, one of the sales reps for One-on-One, knew Tom Jarris, the then GM of 1029 The Hog, which was actually Laser 103 at the time. They just branded it differently. And they said, we lost our sports guy that contributed to the morning show. Not Dan Patrick, but his brother, who was a radio guy out of Indy, Mark Patrick. We lost him to another station. We're looking for a replacement. I think you'd be good. Give it a shot. So I went and I did a couple segments with Bob and Brian, and they liked me, and they said, yeah, we'd like you to be our guy. So I did. So I did updates. They weren't even updates. We were just talking sports with the guys, and did those. They're like 15-minute pops early on, and then it grew to like 20, and then it grew to like 30. And by the time 24 years were over, I was doing pretty much 40 minutes. And it was a very easy 40 minutes as well, because those guys really talented FM morning DJs, and I got to know exactly their personalities and what works with them and everything else. So I likened it to being a guitar player that got a gig with a really great band. I was like Joe Walsh getting hired by the Eagles. It was fantastic. So had a great 24 years. And then what happened was this new sports station that, Trevor decided to pop up. iHeart decided to say, let's get into this game. And they wanted people for it. They actually tried to make a run at Bob and Brian and me, the whole kit and caboodle. Didn't quite get them, but they settled for me as their backup prize. And I'm happy to take it, and I'm having a blast, having the time of my life, because Wisconsin, as you guys know, loves their sports. They love their sports differently than they do on the East Coast, and that's okay. I'm getting the rhythm of that, but man, it is a sports crazed state.
Well, I have a lot that I could come out of there with, because I was like, I have this terrific follow-up, and then you talked about the difference in markets, and I'm like, boy, that's a can we should jump into and explore from sitting out on the East Coast, and then sitting there at ESPN and watching kind of the evolution of that, which was literally, when I got there, they were in a closet, and then there was the glass, and there were people in there, and eventually that became, one was Greeny's office and one was Golick's office. So that was literally the size of what ESPN radio was, right? That has nothing to do with them. It was just, the sports babe was in a very small space when they finally turned her loose.
I remember that, John, because I actually briefly did some, shifts at ESPN radio in 97, and the studio was a closet, and nobody would believe me when I told them, the worldwide leader in sports, that their radio operation was just sort of an afterthought. Yeah. And I was doing overnights, like long stretches, overnight radio, 5 hours. That was where I fell asleep on the air once for a nanosecond. Now,
well, if it's any consolation, I've fallen asleep listening to the radio a lot. That's so, it's not.
Have you ever? Okay, but here's the thing, Trevor. Have you ever fallen asleep on the air because you're so dead tired?
Never.
Okay, I did it once because it was an overnight shift. It was a long run, 5 hours. I was in there by myself. Calls were drying up. It was 3 a.m., whatever. And it's terrifying because even if you blink out for 1 second, you're suddenly like, oh, wait a minute. What was I just talking about? And you have to try to pick it up from there. But yeah, that was the one time that I was like, okay, you need to get your sleep together because this is no good.
So let's jump into a bit of the comparison then, because like I said, as someone who sits there and listens to, obviously ESPN's national, and so their idea is to go to the broadest audience you can, which means we talk about the NFL, and then when we're done talking to the NFL, we talk about the NFL, and then following that, they talk about the NFL. Yeah. And I realize Green Bay is very much like that in terms of Packardom. But if you listen to WFAN, if you are lucky enough to tune into, was it Felger and Maz up there in old Boston?
Right.
I don't know that Wisconsin is more congenial, but it is a different way of talking about their teams, and the audience, I think, which is the key because you got to know who you're talking to, is different. So what do you find in those spots that you have to, I don't know if adjust your game is right, but what is it you have in there that you need to make sure that you're serving these people in a way that resonates with them as opposed to if you're out on the East Coast?
Yeah. No, I think it is. I would say it is more congenial. I think the most bare knuckle sports talk is in Philly. New York is Philly, they're savages. And I say that my wife's from Philly, and I know good friends from Philly, so they can just take it as they'll probably wear
Howard Erskine's out there, right? That puts on a nice suit and then just takes people down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, they're unique in that market and the way that they interact with their teams. They love them fiercely, but when they get on the wrong side of the fans, or especially an athlete, it's ugly. Like the Lindros thing in Philly was really ugly when that thing unraveled. So they're complete savages. New York is hardcore. Boston, same thing. DC is kind of an interesting city where I did radio for a long time because there are a lot of transplants, and they hadn't had a lot of success until they ran into a Stanley Cup championship and a World Series. But yeah, it's just they interact and they interface with their teams differently. There is a huge contingent of Wisconsinites who are like, oh yeah, geez, we love the Packers. It's too bad Aaron Rodgers, too bad Favre threw that interception. They love him so much. It's so much a part of the fabric that they can only go so far in criticizing any decision that was made. So what I brought to the table for Bob and Brian during the McCarthy unraveling was that East Coast, whole attitude of this guy's lost the plot. You got to get rid of him. You got to cut him loose. And there was a lot of people that just did not feel that way. And they had a hard time with it. And I said, it is what it is. Let's move on. So it vibrates differently. And so I'm sensitive to that. Now, I will never lose my East Coast edge, if you will, when it comes to, being a sports fan and everything else. The Packers can and will do something wrong at some point or be mismanaged at some point. They're not now. They're just doing things really well. Goody is, I think, great and has navigated a potentially sticky exit from this Rodgers thing beautifully when it's all said and done. And if Love continues to be as good as we think he is, then, the honeymoon from history continues for even more years, which is insane. It's great. But it's a different vibe for sure.
I always say the Packer fans, to me, they're sort of like, Goody's got to get fired. Goody, let's just say an example. He's got to get fired. He's got to get fired. So then they fire him, and 3 days later, I'm like, boy, I can't believe we fired that guy. Such a good man. Really served the town so well. Right? Like we call for it, but instant remorse. Like, I can't believe we were mean to somebody like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think one time at the depths of it wasn't looking good, right before they went on their Super Bowl run, a lot of fans were saying fire Ted Thompson. So somebody made up a vinyl banner that says fire Ted with his picture. And I think I held it up on the top steps at the Oneida entrance. And right after that game, which they won against the Cowboys 9-7, I think it was, they went on that run. So we jokingly said, well, that was the spur that kicked him into gear. Sure. When I really wasn't, and I'm not even a native. So like, you haven't suffered through the awful years before Favre and before Mikowski came here. And I'm well aware because Bob and Brian would give me the whole lowdown on the awful early 80s Packers. And they had a running bit on their show called All My Packers, which was a soap opera of dysfunction and low-level criminality. So I'm aware of that.
Well, to use some radio terms, in terms of time spent listening, we've reached the end of our first average quarter hour. That's the end of segment 1, like that. We're back for segment 2 with Steve Czaban.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Jay, I'm headed to the Brewers game tonight. Rain is out of the forecast. We are doing the whole tailgate thing, ironically, with Steve Czaban and that entire radio station. And the grill out is on, and I've been watching the Brewers closely. and I can report that there is a gold Miller Lite can in my future.
Finally. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Our long national nightmare is over.
Thank you. They are selling them at AmFam Field for the 50th anniversary of Miller Lite.
But can you keep it? Because didn't you have one right and the guy poured it and then took it?
That was because there was a sponsorship problem at the NFL draft. Okay. They couldn't have that can be anywhere else.
I recall that now. Yes.
I will collect my gold can today. I'm excited about
You're saying the next episode of Inside Wisconsin that we shoot behind you somewhere in a place of prominence, I'm sure.
Clearly.
Will be a gold Miller Lite can.
It will be added to the collection. The white one will not be taken away.
No, you can't. Just wonder, where do we go after that? Like when you've scaled Everest, what's next?
I'm excited. I'm excited to get my hands back on it. I'm telling you, it was blown away when I first got it. 50 years is a long time. Mm-hmm. Listen, there's just something special about tailgating at a Brewers game. I'm excited to do it. The family's coming along. The Brewers are doing fairly decent as of the time of this recording, but so too are the Cubs.
For a team that you're like iffy, we got to see what happens. And, Zrosky was amazing in his debut. And then, of course, the ankle thing. And it's like, oh, my God. But still, 5 innings and no hit ball. We'll take that and a win.
Somewhere Brandon Woodruff is like, well, hold my beer, unfortunately.
As long as it's a Miller Lite, he can hold it.
Gold can. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Inside Wisconsin to find options near you. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Cheers to 50 years of Miller Lite. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Also, it's less filling and it tastes great.
Both. Time for another top 5 list here on the Inside Wisconsin show, presented by our friends at UW-Platteville. Their renowned engineering and STEM programs offer a cutting-edge environment with over 60 majors to choose from. Exciting clubs, organizations, all there on campus, and always fun happening. So get there now and discover why UW-Platteville is a smart investment. Apply now, uwplatt.edu. So last episode, we went through some numbers that were the greatest retired numbers in Wisconsin sports history. We shared our lists. By far the most common list that we've ever had in all 110 episodes. Yeah, we agreed. It's terribly, terribly uncomfortable. So today, you came up with a list of the top 5 numbers.
To you, when you said retired numbers, well, wait, why don't we do the numbers that should be retired and then are not?
Yeah, phenomenal idea. So let's caveat to that. Now, I did not put a list together because, like most top 5 lists, sometimes there is a quiz. And so I asked John, come up with the numbers, and obviously they're attached to people, and I'm going to see if I can peg the person that's attached to the number. It should be good. We'll be right back to not having a clue.
So, well, first off, I think there are 3 numbers that will be retired, but they're active, and so they're not. Right. So these are things. So when we say, oh, these numbers should be retired, I didn't include them because they're going to be. Right.
Okay. I can guess those?
Yeah. 12 is going to be retired.
34.
Yep. So Aaron, Giannis.
Yelly. 22.
No. I think 8. Think Brewers, think 8.
Oh, Braun.
I think they'll do Braun. So I think those 3 are not right now that we can't say, well, they're not retired. Because I think all 3 of those are locks that they'll come around to do those.
Okay,
yes
cool.
Or no? You think?
Yeah, I agree with that.
With me on that?
Oh,
okay.
Absolutely. There's no way they can't not retire Rodgers. Same thing with Giannis. Braun, don't you think they would have done it? Because he's not active.
No way. Wait, no way they can't not. Ladies and gentlemen, the first triple negative in a sentence. That's fantastic. I'm glad you all were here for that history.
You're welcome.
Bit of grammar from him.
You're welcome.
No, I think they'll get to Braun. Yeah. No, I don't think it's too soon. I think they'll with it. So I think those 3 are locks. Then I think there's an active one that should, but I'm on the fence whether they'll do it or not, and that's number 22.
And that's I heard this the other day. That is Chris Middleton.
Yeah, I think Middleton probably, given who else, the caliber of other players, the significance they were to the Bucks, who have a lot of numbers. Yeah. I think Middleton ends up in the rafters for Milwaukee. So those, I think, are either active or no-brainers. Okay?
Got it. Okay.
As always, I have to have some caveats. All right. So at number 5, I have 59.
It's John Anderson.
Yes. I don't know why. He was an all-decade performer for the Green Bay Packers. Yes. He needs to be retired. Number 59.
I like it.
He was 60 for a season. If you want to go that way, that's fine. But 59 needs to be retired. Okay. The next one, from what I can understand, this program has never retired a number ever. And I think there are two candidates that should do it. Okay. Number 30 and number 23. And since I'll give you this to narrow it down. So Wisconsin women's hockey team has never, as far as I can tell, retired a number.
Okay.
And I think there should be two. I don't know which one's going to go first, but number 30 and number 23.
I have no idea who they're attached to, but I'm intrigued.
Jesse Vetter, the goaltender, who won 3 national championships and a couple of bronze, silver medals for the U.S. Olympic team as the goalie, or Hillary Knight, right, who for the longest time, all-time leading goal scorer, again, 3 natties, 2 Olympic silvers, got a gold medal. I think and maybe that's Mark Johnson. Just like, if we don't ever retire any, we've had so many good players, this is the way. But I think, that, and I can see that. Like, let's just not retire so that somebody can go, yeah, I want to wear number 23. I want to be Hillary Knight, right? I think there's something to be said for that, especially in college.
That's interesting coming from Mark Johnson, whose number is not
the only
retired,
men's
but not
number retired. Only men's number retired in Wisconsin hockey is number 10.
But it's retired, yet they can still hand it out. Remember, that was a weird one.
There's some of those.
Yeah.
Anyway, number 3 is 15. That number should be retired, 15.
Okay, we covered this last time. That was where you and I differed, was number 4 versus number 15. So it's not Bart Starr. I got nothing on this one.
Right. I don't know if he's the best 15 ever in the state. Number 15, Brewers.
So that was the Harvey Wallbanger years, obviously.
More with George Bamberger is where he started.
Still not.
I know Harvey. Wallbangers was good, but he wasn't even the guy who won. So yeah, come on, you can't.
The only guys' numbers I know from that team are the ones that are retired. So I'm screwed. Who is it?
Cecil Cooper.
Oh yeah. Where do you stop on that team? Why him and not? I mean, where do you stop?
Well, who would you next? Jimmy Gantner?
Him or Gorman Thomas, or I know Raleigh's retired, right? Raleigh's retired, Molitor's retired, Young's retired.
Raleigh, I'm not really sure. Yeah, those guys, because if you do that, but I think like Ben Ogilvy was a great player, but he's not number retired. I don't think Gorman's quite there. Charlie Moore isn't. Ted
Don
Simmons
Sutton?
isn't. Don Money could be. Don Sutton should have his number retired just for beating the Orioles in that last game. If you're going on that, CC Sabathia's number should be retired for the freaking half a season he put in for them.
No doubt, right?
Cecil Cooper, again, just every kid knows how to wave his bat like Cecil Cooper. Number 2 is 87.
Robert Brooks.
Packers, not the right guy.
Packers, not the right guy.
Packers, number 87. Brooks, not the guy. That's not who.
Jordy Nelson?
Not even close.
We're going the wrong way, I think.
You are going you are on the wrong side of the ball.
Oh, I'm in trouble. I got nothing.
And it's not Eldon Roche. I think Willie Davis, they should retire his number for 87.
He won the Heisman, right? Did he not win the Heisman? No, that's obviously not on the defensive side of the ball. Willie, who won the Heisman? There's a Heisman in the Atrium Plaza. I know. I corrected myself there. Who won the Heisman?
I don't know the Packers have a Heisman winner.
There's a Heisman in Lambeau Field.
Really? Paul Hornady.
Is it his?
Paul Hornady. Yeah. For a 2-10, for a 2-9 Notre Dame team or whatever. Yeah. For a horrible Notre Dame team. Paul Hornady. Willie Davis was the leader of the defense. He was a great player, great human, great success after football. Reject from the Cleveland Browns. But Willie Davis ran the defense. And most of the guys, they have Reggie White's numbers retired, Nitschke. But even Nitschke was second fiddle, I think, to Willie Davis. So I think Willie Davis's 87 should be retired. And that means that we can't have, Jordy and Brooks get overshadowed. That's fine, because Willie Davis was a way better player than both those people. And if somebody wants to fight me on that, I'll battle on that one.
Deal.
And
What's
then,
number one?
My favorite Badger of all time. So I've talked about him on this program before. Number 26 should be retired.
Is that Crazy Legs?
No, he's retired. He's 40. Come on, man.
Felt like I had a shot there. You know what? I got to be honest. We probably talked about this in episode 1, and that was a long time ago.
I don't know. Yeah, number 26 is the great Billy Merrick. He's a high school kid out of Illinois. And in an era when Archie Griffin was winning the Heisman, Billy Merrick was leading the nation in scoring and led the Big Ten in rushing, while they were giving the Heisman to Ohio State and Woody Hayes and those guys, because they won a bunch. And they were Billy Merrick, number 26, my favorite. Right now, he's probably my bucket list guy on this show, would be to get Billy Merrick. And the first Badger game I ever saw in Kinnick Stadium in 1973. Yeah, 73. So 73, 74, 75, 73. He ran for more than 200 yards and buried Iowa. And that he was still just like, I have pictures on my computer of Billy Merrick, just because like there he is running behind Dennis Lick. He had the great old helmet, and I was hooked, right? There's the first great hero. First game I see, the guy goes crazy. And then he had great seasons. And it's gotten a little lost because of so many great Badger tailbacks who came under Barry and then Bielema and Christ. That it's gotten lost. But the guy had 3,000-yard seasons back when that was a big deal in 11 games. And said led the nation in scoring one time. And yeah, Billy Merrick is my all-time favorite Badger. And I do think not just where John Anderson's kind of, okay, we should retire 59 because that's funny. Billy Merrick absolutely should have his number retired. Don't you remember he ran for John Jardine? You don't know who John Jardine is. What am I talking about?
Yeah, that's fair.
He was
all right, Wisconsin
coach of the Badgers. But yeah, so I don't know. Call our booker. We need to get Billy Merrick on the show.
You're looking at him. Wisconsin, where do you stand? What numbers do you think should be retired that aren't, and they're not a given like the ones we mentioned? Put them in the comments below. What number, who is it, and why? It'll be fun to read. All right, back to Zabe. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, Steve Zabin, the Inside Wisconsin show. Zabe, we just talked about numbers that should be retired here in Wisconsin that aren't on our every episode top 5 list.
I think there's 3 levels. Like there's the Hall of Fame. It goes Hall of Fame, number, statue. And to me, the requirements for each as you go up the ladder get steeper and steeper. And I have gone on many great rants about you cannot build a statue for this guy. Like, and I'm not ripping. Well, you're ripping on the guy. I'm not ripping on the guy. It's just, to me, statues should be both really revered and rare, and you got to die first. That's just my personal thing. Like Robert Griffin III has a statue at Baylor. I mean, good for him, but come on, man, that's a bit much. So statues the highest, numbers are second, Hall of Fame below that. On the number front in the NFL, it's fascinating because they used to have such narrow bands for positions that you couldn't afford to retire a bunch of numbers. Otherwise, you'd run out. They've pried open a whole bunch with the receivers now, letting them wear teens and single digits. So that has helped, but there still is a bit of a logjam on that. And some teams don't officially retire numbers. They just stop giving them out, you know? And so the funniest story from DC was number 9 and number 7 were not given out after Sonny Jurgen.
Going Sonny, yeah.
Going Sonny, right? They hadn't been given out for years. Spurrier gets the job. He brings in a couple ex-Gators, Shane Matthews and Danny Werfel, as his quarterbacks. Bad idea because they're nice guys, but they weren't pro quarterbacks. Worse idea was practice number 1. Who comes out in the 9 and the 7? Because that's what they wore in college. Yeah, Shane with the 9, Danny with the 7. Me and Andy Poland lost our minds. We're like, what is he doing? And why is Snyder even letting those things out? Because they hadn't been officially retired, even though they should have been, but they were just not issued. And so I think there's a lot of that still goes on. Trevor, are there Packer numbers that they don't dole out, but they have not yet been retired?
Yes.
12.
Yeah, but that's been 2 days.
fair.
Mostly 1 and 5. Curly Lambeau was 1, and Paul Horning was 5, and a couple of guys have worn it. Vince Ferragamo came in for a cup of coffee and wore it. Legit. Mikowski wore it for a training camp and a preseason and couldn't wait to get rid of it.
Wow. I didn't know the Magic Man was in that thing for a brief hot second.
Yeah.
And
So 1 and 5 are kind of
okay.
1 and 5 are kind of not reissued, and then some they take like some people were mad that 36 got out right away from Leroy Butler, and then they like was Nick Collins was really good. It was okay. I just went apoplectic when they gave Devontae Adams number to a rookie kicker the following year that he left. I thought 17 deserved. I don't know that you got to retire, but I thought it deserved a little more respect than Andres Carlson.
I agree. Kickers, if Carlson, I assume Carlson asked for it, that would be the most emphatic no kicker.
I don't know. The fact that he couldn't kick made him really ask for it.
Exactly. Right. I would be like, if you ask again, you're getting 99. So drop it. But no, the 5 thing, that's crazy to me. I cannot believe they haven't hung up number 5. Why is that?
Yeah, they just they don't do many of them, so I don't know.
The gambling stuff had nothing to do with it, did it?
No. He's
water under the bridge.
Not even a consideration.
That's okay. Well, so they really haven't dished it out, but it's not retired yet.
Not there.
And Curly Lambeau played in an era where they had numbers, because I know that you get far enough back in history, it's like
this was number 1. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's a few.
Interesting.
So you were talking about the difference between Wisconsin nice and East Coast maybe not so nice. What is it, in your opinion, about Wisconsin sports that lend us to having to be nice? Is it because we haven't been? I mean, there were some bad years, don't get me wrong, but we won Super Bowls. We won NBA championships. Not quite a World Series yet, but are the teams just different that require a different fandom, or is it really just this Wisconsin nice thing?
No, I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's a upper Midwest thing. And I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, you're doing a show in Wisconsin. How is that? And I go, the people are the best. I said, they're just really, really down to earth, good people. And they've got a great friendly way about them. I think it's a cultural thing. And I think that reflects in the teams and the fandom of the teams. Doesn't mean there can't be hot irrationality about certain things. Brewer fans are getting on my nerves these days sometimes, because they're just like, we got to win a World Series, and they're impatient when the team is kind of finding their way, at 500 for the first month of the year, and I'm just like, let's go with it here. We got a good young team that's got exciting players. Mizorowski was awesome last night. I said, you got to be a little bit more realistic about the market size versus what the landscape is. The Brewers have a place in Milwaukee's heart and Wisconsin's heart that is unique. And so they want it badly. And they were so close as recently as 2018. And that was such a heartbreaker. I get it. But let's not be unreasonable here about the big picture on things.
How often do you find that you get if we get pushback? I hear it all the time. I've gotten it here. And you just go like, actually, I'm offering what is a fairly clear-eyed view of things. And the lenses that you have are the ones that might be a little fogged, or the prescription might not be quite right.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. There are times there are pushbacks. I remember after the Jets lost with Rodgers 2 years ago, or maybe 3 now. Years are flying by. Home loss. That was the one game in which Trevor Wilson, the Wilson kid, the little kid, blonde-haired kid, named Locke right now. He looked pretty good in that game. They came right in, beat him. Sauce Gardner stole the cheese head on his way out of the stadium. It's a rainy day.
Yeah,
I had a few pops. I was there up in the stands escorting a winner of a pair of game tickets. And I think I cut a little video for Twitter. It was like, terrible effort, terrible coaching. It was pretty much a brutal, like, this sucked. They need to get their act together kind of thing. And I think somebody at the station's like, yeah, it's our first year carrying the games. You should take that one down. And my feeling was, come on, you're going to make me take it down? I'm like, I'm a sports fan. Like, that's just my opinion now. I'll get a good night's sleep. I'll work through my hangover. I'll feel better tomorrow. I'll feel better by Thursday of next week. Like, it's just a thing, you know? But I think there is a little bit of that sensitivity. Like, you can't go too hard on them. You know, there are Packers. So.
John and I have talked about this for a long time. You mentioned Twitter. John's broadcasting career started before social media. Your broadcasting career started before social media. How much podcasts like this now pop up on social media? How much has social media changed the broadcasting game for you in radio?
I don't know if it's changed the game, but it gives a visibility to sports radio it didn't have before, and that can both be good and bad. I think Twitter is terrible in that it's just excerpting a tiny little opinion in one moment of time, and it's putting it out there visually, and it hits people differently when they see people visually saying something. Because, again, like I said, feelings change and you get over it, and the passions of being a fan rise and fall with every win and loss along the way. So you can't take it too seriously. But Twitter is a dangerous thing for us, and in radio. It's just dangerous to, like, I think my new Twitter handle is, I ain't here to fight the whole internet. Yeah, that's how I feel. I ain't here to fight the whole internet. I'm going to give you a few thoughts about a few things, but I'm not getting into full-on knockdown dragouts. Now, some of our guys, like Armin at the station, Armin loves being out there in the streets, as he calls it. He will go after guys, and it's good-natured and everything, but it's just kind of funny because he was going after Dr. David Chow for misdiagnosing the Mizorowski ankle thing yesterday. He was like, there's another one you got wrong. So it's kind of funny.
I like that guy. He's pretty good. When it comes to an ACL, that's my guy. I know about the rest of them. The ACL, that guy is usually on it.
Now it's funny because I've had back and forth with Kuhn when he was on the station about Dr. Chow. He called him derisively Dr. Chow Chow. It's like, oh, how about your boy, Dr. Chow Chow? And I go, look, I'm not acting like he's the final diagnosis, but it's good that we have somebody who is trained in diagnosing sports injuries via video only to give us insight in what they see in an injury. Because it used to be, I can't wait until Tuesday to find out if Jordan Love's season is over after one game in Brazil, because that was the feeling right there.
Right.
So I was hanging on every refresh of both Dr. Chow and the now come along guys, right, that have tried to say, oh, I want in on that game, because there's other sports docs out there that do that. I think it's harmless, but don't take any Twitter doctor's diagnosis as final, right? Let's put it that way.
You are forced into a job right now where the Packers are the subject every day, 365. You cannot avoid that. If I left it to your devices, what would you talk about every day in the sports world?
Well, we do talk our fair share of Packers, and it's almost every day, but we also get off the beaten path to a certain degree about whatever is timely at the moment, or just stuff we get into as guys or family men, or just the daily life stuff. So, and that's really a feature of our day part, morning radio. You got to cast a broader net on this. You can't get too in the weeds about, is Nate Hobbs really going to be an adequate replacement at CB1 or CB2 for, Jair Alexander? You're going to lose a lot of people that way, because I think we in the media, at least I know in sports radio, I overestimate how much the average fan is watching or knows about. Where I'm scrolling all day and I'm reading articles. My buddies who are hardcore sports fans I play golf with, yeah, they love sports and they know a lot. But I'll be saying, did you see this? Did you see that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, you didn't? And they're like, look, I got a job.
Incredulous with people that don't read, yeah.
Yeah, but they're like, I got a job selling garage doors. I've been in 3 cities in the last week. Yeah, no, I didn't see it. What's going on? So I think in that regard, we get off the beaten path. So I like talking about all sports. My motto is, you always want to be interesting. That's the key in spoken word format. But to be interesting, you have to be interested. So if there's something that is maybe not your jam, you have to at least be open-minded to be inquisitive about it. And there's plenty of sports that I have no taste for and and have no use for, but I at times am fascinated with, so how does that work? Or why is it that way kind of thing?
So that is a lovely, informative answer that didn't answer my question. If left your
What
devices,
would you talk about?
About?
Specifically?
Yeah, do you have something? Like I would talk about golf and Tiger Woods all day, every day. I could do that.
Well, yeah, don't get me going on golf because then I'll start nerding out. I was giving people, John, the history of the stimp meter yesterday. Actually, today,
Right.
this morning.
By the way, there's no greens at 18. I know the Oakmont people are tough, and they want to tell you how hard it is. It's not at 18. Come on.
So, did you see my tweet on that?
I am not on the Twitter. I don't know if that's been. Yeah, I am not on the Twitter.
I like that you're not on it, and I like that you didn't see it because I exactly said that. I had finally lost it. Dan Hicks said that. He goes, some of the members here say that they get up to 18 when regular play. And that's what I had to tweet. I go, just bleeping stop already.
Yeah, they'd never finish a round.
Well, right, exactly. You as a golfer know, and I know it's not such a thing. So that launched into a discussion of the stimp meter and what it is. Armin at the station, who is great because he is interested in a lot of things that he doesn't know about, didn't know what the hell I was talking about or why I was so worked up. And so I went into the whole thing about the stimp meter and how they measure the speed of greens. And it's a wonderfully simple device of just a yardstick with a slot in it. And, there's no mechanical parts. And it was created by a guy named Edward Stimson, which, of course, why wouldn't it be? And how even when you measure it on the flat part of a green and you do it both ways and average it out, it doesn't take into account slopes, which Oakmont has tons of. And even the slopiest and fastest and best courses, as you know, they run maybe 14, which is electrifyingly fast and borderline unplayable. So every foot extra of that is pure fantasy. So to pedal 18 out there as a number, that's like saying, I think I saw Ohtani hit a 700-foot home run yesterday. No, he didn't. And I like Oakmont a lot. I was lucky enough to play it once. A friend of mine got me on it way back when it had trees. Yep. I assume a man like yourself has played it, Mr. Anderson. Yeah.
So I have not played it because usually the offer comes from McDonough, and I can play with him. I can't drink with him, and I'm like, I don't know that I'm ready for Oakmont and your 14 White Claws. But I have been there and covered 2 of the opens there. Yeah. So, and one with the trees when I was there in '94, and one without the trees. So
yeah, no, it was great. It was easily my number 1 rated parkland course I'd ever played because I'm a big fan of that style of course. Mm-hmm. And they cut all the trees down, which is another fascinating story that I'm sure you know about. Trevor, you know why they cut down all the trees at Oakmont?
I don't.
They started, some of the members are like, let's bring this thing back to the way it was designed in 03 or whatever. So the grounds crew started sniping trees one by one. They would take them out in the middle of the night and they'd grind the stump and they would sod over it and they'd water it and they'd tamp it down. And then a member would be like, oh, what happened to that elm over there? And they're like, well, don't know nothing about it. And they were sniping them one by one like a serial killer. And then it finally got out that that's what they were doing. So there's a huge brouhaha with the membership. Pro-tree, anti-tree, there was threats of lawsuits, guys were resigning and blah, blah, blah. Well, the pro-tree people lost. And then the course just went Britney Spears and shaved its head. And it is what it is. And they love it. They love it, John, as you know, because they're all about green speeds at Oakmont, and every dime and every minute not spent trimming trees or worrying about debris or picking up leaves can be spent on turf conditions, and they love it.
Makes the squirrel logo a little less apropos because they have no place now to go and run around, but it's
right. Why do they have a squirrel logo? There's one tree. They must all live in the tree between 10 and 18 because it's a busy place. Look, I think it's an awesome place. It's an awesome story. It's super hard course, but it looked better with hair. Looked better with a few trees at least. Take half of them out, for God's sakes. Don't take them all out.
So, Zabe, you mentioned it earlier. You do the mornings with Brian Butch, the Steve Zabin Show statewide on the Game Radio Network. It's 9 different signals across the state. But it all started in 94 with Bob and Brian on Laser 103. In 1994, I think I was in 5th grade. I'm not trying to make you feel old. I'm just saying I actually grew up listening to you on Bob and Brian. I remember some of the shticks that you did. There was one moment, I think you were talking about a swimmer that had a connection to either some Olympic swim, and you said out loud on the radio, seriously, guys, she's super attractive. Google her wet, Google her dry. It doesn't matter. And then there was a pause, and you went, ooh, that was dirty. I didn't mean for that to be dirty. I didn't mean that was. But I love that segment on Bob and Brian, and I feel like that is what the morning show with you and Butch has turned into, is just the 20, 30, or 40-minute segment that you did is now 3 hours long. What did you love the most about what you were doing with Laser 103 back in the day that has stuck with you now for the rest of your radio career?
Well, really, that side gig I had was so influential to my style and just how I am now, because I was suddenly on with a couple of FM DJs that had an FM radio sensibility to them, a mentality about them, and they knew enough about sports, but not a ton. And I'm living in the AM sports only radio world, which is more, box score, batting average, who won the game kind of thing. But I quickly figured out with Bob and Brian, they knew a little bit, but not a ton. And also, I was free, because it was not like my primary job, to get a little bit looser with them and sometimes go over the line on things. And so, again, it's akin to, they are, they're the Eagles. They would be Henley and Fry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh came in and started trashing hotel rooms. He gave the Eagles an edge that gave them the second half of their career. They were the stars. It was their band, but they let me come in. And because I came in for 40 minutes and sometimes trashed a hotel room and left, and they might have had some meetings going, I didn't like the fact that, he said that or whatever. It was just good radio. They had to pick up my messes afterwards, which made it fun. I believe the swimmer you were talking about was Dana Torres. I had a thing for her.
Mm-hmm.
She was my type. Very athletic.
Google her wet?
Google, yeah, you could Google her wet, Google her dry. Who knows if she was on some kind of performance enhancing stuff, but I mean, she was like the textbook picture of a swimmer with that V torso and just muscles and everything else. So, yeah, probably her.
Outstanding. I remember it like yesterday.
You remember the bit about the Bartman bit and the Steeds of Vengeance?
No. Bring it back, though. That's great.
So the Steeds of Vengeance was a good one because, Bartman unraveled. He'd kind of opened the portal of every, Cubs ghost and demon along the way. And I think I put together this. I went back and I noticed some other things the Cubs had done that had rubbed people the wrong way. They started building all those rooftop bars across the street and trying to control them. And I said, man, you are messing with the gods here. Like, you are messing with karma here. You're the team that has never won. And so I talked about the Steeds of Vengeance that were going to come to haunt the Cubs. And that Bartman was one of them. It was a whole big spiel, but it was funny.
That's great.
Can I pick up on something there when you talked about Dana Torres, or people that you kind of that you can speak about? And I got in trouble one time because I wrote a lead in that people thought wasn't terribly flattering about Michelle Wee, because it was on our age of her graduation and she was 18 and you shouldn't pick on 18-year-old young ladies. And my argument was she's a pro. Right now, the context in which I referred to her, because she was not playing well, was she was a pro. And we went around and around, and I'm like, okay, this is not the hill I want to die on, but I think you guys are super wrong. NIL coming in. I feel like this opens now. I respect college kids and that, great, but if you're going to take $6.2 million or something like that and you miss a shot or you do something stupid, even if you're 18, I don't know. I feel like that is that has given me some license now that I can treat you like I treat Jair Alexander or Romeo Dobbs or whomever else. I just curious as how you see some of the shift in what's happening is what we can and cannot say that would be deemed appropriate, mean, or otherwise.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think that's going to be a fascinating thing to watch going forward about the dynamic of what do people say about certain athletes. Now, you being on a much higher perch in the ecosystem, being on SportsCenter, I can understand the sensitivity of that. And the whole Michelle Wee thing was a fascinating phenomenon because she's a really sweet girl and good person, but her parents were basically perpetrating a fraud that too many in the media went along with, that she could play with the men.
Mm-hmm.
And it enriched her along the way, but it was a farce for anybody who knows golf. So that was a tricky one because you didn't want to attack her personally, but the whole thing was a joke. I mean, she's getting stretchered out because of heat exhaustion at the John Deere and shooting 80, and you're like, what are we doing here exactly? But as far as the NIL stuff goes, yeah, I mean, the whole college world, it's hurtling. I say, John, it's hurtling towards a lockout and then a high school draft. And people say, oh, come on. And I go, well, look at ding, 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 all these things that have happened. I point and I go, you are here.
Yeah.
We're here on that list of ding, 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 ding. Because when Texas Tech says they're going to have a $55 million athletics budget to pay the players, which is way above the $20 million, and that's before the lawsuits have even been resolved about Title IX and the women's programs and everything else, where do you think it's headed? And so that's going to split everything into a bunch of schools like the Stanfords and Vanderbilts are going to probably cry uncle and say, we can't compete with this. Let's get out. And then you're going to have a whole new system. And then whoever is left is going to say, well, we don't want to have to try to recruit. We should just have a high school draft. We're paying them. We're paying them $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million. Why shouldn't I be able to draft a guy out of high school and say, hey, you're an Aggie. Hey, you're a Blue Devil, and call it a pro league? But we're not there yet.
Not yet.
Right around the corner.
You are here, though.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Czabe on the Inside Wisconsin show in just a bit. Stay here.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaines Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Especially for Father's Day, JA, the grills come out, the steaks hit the grill from Festival Foods. And so I'm curious, if you are having a grill out at home and you have every steak in the Festival Foods meat case at your fingertips, what are you choosing for yourself? What is your steak of choice at Festival Foods?
If it's me in that case, I would find a good bone-in ribeye.
Bone-in ribeye.
I like the bone in. I don't really know why that I'm buying all the things they say about the flavor addition, how well it's marbled, blah blah blah. Like I like, maybe I'm just too chicken to do a fillet on my own, and the grill is a little hard place for that. It's here, so I just give me that. And the thing is though, and don't get down on me because most people do, I like a steak medium well, and people are like, why are you burning that to death and making it charcoal? But I am not a rare guy. I needed a medium well.
Me too.
Okay, good. Thank
I am
goodness.
the exact same way.
A lot of people talk down to me like, I can't believe you're going to ruin this perfectly good piece of meat. So
there are chefs at restaurants. I will order it medium well. And I've learned to just say medium plus, because if you say the word well with a steak, they're pissed. They instantly get pissed.
I will say sometimes to the server, if it does not offend the chef, I would like it medium well. And if it is gonna, then just get it as close as he can until he can no longer take it and not live with himself. But I'm like I said, I've had enough people do that. And the Andersons, my grandparents, I can still see my grandfather one time telling, put it on, turn it over, and if it doesn't move when I cut into it, I'm sending it back. I'm like, ugh, I just don't have that,
We have some friends, and Charlene, orders the steak blue. And I think that's what you mean, like damn near cold in the middle. But however you like your steak, choose your steak well at Festival Foods, whether it's Father's Day or just summer grill out season. It is there for you at Festival Foods. I'm so glad that you're a medium well guy. It really does piss off some chefs too.
And then who else really will take some chances is Butchie will tell you, television's John Butchie. He's like, I'll just put ketchup on a steak. I don't care what it is. I like it. He goes, and a lot of people get mad at me. Fine, put on hollandaise sauce, put on béarnaise sauce, put on garlic butter, put whatever. He goes, just give me a little side of ketchup. I just want to touch it. He's like, A1's fine, apparently. That's not a heresy. He goes, I just happen to like it. He goes, so he gets looked at cross-eyed every once in a while, too. So That's to each his own, man. Enjoy if you're eating, the idea is to enjoy it. And so, go for it.
Back to wrap it up with Steve Czaban on the Inside Wisconsin show. Trevor John, 2 for me, and then the JA lightning round. Number 1, radio. Oh, there's this thing called a podcast, and you have one, the Czabecast. Tell us about it.
Well, we have hats, and by hats, it's not official till you have a hat with a logo.
Totally legit now.
Yeah, like seriously. I mean, you walk in anywhere with this hat, and they're like, "Wow, you must be a real deal." Now, Czabecast, which is sort of just my overflow collection, it's about 45 minutes, 5 days a week on whatever I want to talk about. People say, "Well, can you just go off on anything you want on the podcast?" And I'm like, not while I'm still employed by a brick and mortar place, because trust me, if I say something that's too out of bounds or too hot for somebody, it'll leak out and then it'll be a problem. So, but it's just stuff that I am fascinated by, like this horrible plane crash in India. I have a morbid fascination with air disasters. I think I've seen every episode that they put out on the Smithsonian Channel about it. Even though I'm not afraid to fly, it just fascinates me. So that kind of stuff I'll go into depth about. And it is a lot of sports, 50% sports. It's some media guys that join me on the show, but then just a lot of my buddies and guys that are interesting that I know that I'll put on there. And yeah, we just have fun with it. It's a nice little boutique shop off the side of the main hotel.
I look forward to the day when you're not employed by the bricks and mortar, so you can really go off on that thing. I am all in on that. Not wishing that on any of us anytime soon.
What in the world is not right these days that I would go off on? Oh, wait a minute. Just about everything. Never mind.
Yeah, everything. All right, choose one and then off to the lightning round. Is it bang on the drum all day at Lambeau, jump around at a Badger game, or roll out the barrel at a Brewer game? But you only get one. What can you not live without?
Come on.
I know.
You can't do all three. What are you talking about? They're all perfect, by the way. The only objection I have to all of them is that they're overplayed. Jump around has also been commandeered by other game ops managers that put it in their rotation. You can't stop them from doing it. So that's unfortunate. The best one of the three, I'll go with bang on the drum all day.
There's no wrong answer.
I would argue roll out the barrel's the only one I ever see here at wedding receptions as well.
Oh, really?
Oh, gee, are you kidding? Yes, you go to a Green Bay wedding, you got to have a polka.
And they don't do jump around, or they don't do. I would imagine they play the suite of them at some point in the reception.
Yeah, no, usually I get the roll of the barrel. Don't even do the chicken dance, Trev.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just doing.
Don't make us throw you off your own. I can't throw you off your own show. But we both can hit the stop record button if this kind of nonsense continues.
Chicken dance is also national. I don't think it's where did roll out the barrel come from, and does anyone else kind of use
My
it?
guess is probably Alvin Stachinsky and his polka band with 2 accordions.
Did they write it?
That I don't think so.
Do we know?
I don't think they wrote Apple Peaches Pumpkin Pie or She's Too Fat for Me, which I don't know how they've updated that into the 2025 version, but that's also that's a banger as well.
Banger. Love it. We got a segment called Banger Rejoin. Do you want to be a picker on it? So here's the deal. We started this by saying, is this song a banger? And there's a great soundbite from Parks and Recs, Aziz Ansari. You know it.
Yes, I know it well.
How many beats are there? How sick are the drops?
How many drops?
Are there musical instruments?
No
I was having a beer song on my computer. I had to throw it away just to be safe.
Yeah, no acoustics.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we started okay, each one of us one day we'd pick a banger as our final rejoin. But then once it's used, it's used. Well, the list now is, I think, over 1,000 songs. So it's kind of like Bitcoin mining. It's taken more and more computing power to dig them out of the weeds. And it's very contentious because there is no true, even though Aziz Ansari claims you can't have acoustic instruments, I disagree, because there's a lot of great funk songs that have horns in it, and they're bangers without a doubt. Yeah. So it's a very subjective thing, and that's what keeps it fresh as we dig deeper and deeper to try to find these things of, does it qualify? And it's all musical tastes. It's there's a lot of arguments on it, but there's no definitive thing for it.
Yeah, the supply lines are getting thin if you've got a comma in that number already.
I'm betting 1,000. I'm betting 1,000. Just want you to know.
1,000? Okay. And
1,000.
certain groups, they've already gone 9 or 10 deep songs, like AC/DC, they've pretty much emptied every album they have, basically.
All right, I'm going to just fire a few of these at you quick, all right?
All right, let's go.
Imus or Howard Stern?
Stern.
Paul Harvey or Dr. Ruth?
Paul Harvey was an absolute radio genius.
Fill in the blank. Sports talk callers are
irrational, but I love it because we all are.
Yep. This is pre-Trevor, but you and I are similar in age. Which needs to make a comeback? Boxing, horse racing, or barrel jumping?
Oh, barrel jumping for sure, because it's completely lost. And it was insane to think about, that you're on ice skates and you're like, wee! If you don't make it, it's a complete wipeout.
I can that was my video games as a kid. Now it's like, go outside, put down your Xbox or your Stitch or whatever it's called. And my folks are like, you have to get out of the house. I'm like, Mom, barrel jumping from Zurich coming on. I can't leave right now.
Right. Cliff diving from Acapulco as well on Wide World of Sports on Saturday. A big fan of bringing that back. I used to love the outdoor games on ESPN and the log rolling. So about the log rolling.
Yeah, but I think we've had a change in culture added to culture. Like, you can go to Green Bay. There's 2 axe throwing places right now. And that's because of ESPN's early woodsmen that were out there.
Right.
Evel Knievel, yes or no?
Oh, my God. Boyhood idol, because you and I are the same age. And all of it, you probably had the Evel Knievel toy, the motorcycle bike. Jump that thing off of every porch, every ledge, every place we could find in the house, off the stairs, down the stairs, all over the place. Yeah, it was fantastic. Not the best human being, Evel Knievel, because I've seen a lot of the documentaries. Yeah. But and what's crazy is, can I get nerdy for a quick second on that? And you probably know this fact. Trevor, how much Evel Knievel do you know, young man?
A little bit, actually. I remember from being a kid in the 80s when he would do his stunts or whatever on the weekends. It wasn't primetime viewing. I remember it being a Saturday thing, if I'm remembering right.
When he jumped the fountains at Caesar's Palace, he did it on a motorcycle. Well, he did it poorly. That's number one. He nearly killed himself. But he did it on a motorcycle that was wholly inequipped to do such a jump. It was like a heavy Harley Davidson of some make that they had to reinforce the struts because they were worried it was going to snap in two upon landing. Didn't have enough real horsepower. Nothing against the modern day Travis Pastranas, but they're riding much different bikes that are super light, super powerful, and have all the shocks in them, so they can do those kind of stunts. What Evel Knievel did was completely insane. Yeah, he just jumped a brick. Give me three movies every man should have in his home. Saving Private Ryan, I would say Field of Dreams, and Caddyshack.
Okay, good. I have Caddyshack, The Godfather, and Animal House. Who the hell is Otto the Saxon?
I don't know. Is that the mascot of my high school, Langley?
It is.
Well, since they have refused to put me in any of their Hall of Fames, John, I have no current relation with Langley High School. One of these days, they'll deem fit to induct me into something, but as of right now, I'm dead to them, so they're dead to me.
So then what are my chances of you introducing me to Lauren Graham?
I know Lauren Graham. She was my year in high school. You looked her up, didn't you? Yes. She's.
Well, I have a thing for her. And then, when I was looking back, I'm like, wait, I think Lauren Graham's. And then I found out I had no idea until now. But now I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, maybe you could help me out.
In my class of '86, Langley High, and she was Gilmore Girls, right? That was her main thing. It was in a number of other movies. Lovely actress, lovely gal. I didn't really know her in high school. So do I have her number right now? No. Could I dig to get it? I bet you I could. Okay. But if I do that, will you pick up the phone and call her?
It's a good question. That's the 16-year-old question. Like your 16-year-olds, would you, if you finally had her number, would you call her? I'm gonna have to think about that. But
Yeah, because if I'm gonna dig it out, then you gotta shoot that shot.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm not gonna make you go to the wall just yet. I just want to know that maybe if I had to, you could do that. Name 3 schools in the Big West Conference that are not UC Santa Barbara.
Well, current Big West Conference, I don't even know if it's called the Big West Conference anymore because it's changed and morphed over the years. I'm guessing Pacific is still in there. I'm guessing UC Irvine is still in there. Yeah. And I would hope that Fresno State is still in there.
Fresno State's going to be a Pac-12 school now, but
close.
A lot of the UCs in there, but a lot of the UCs we'll take.
So I could go the old conference, as I recall it: Irvine, Fullerton, Long Beach, UCSB, Pacific, Fresno State, UNLV. Later on, Nevada, Reno, and then Utah State up in Logan, Utah. That was always a nasty road trip when I called games there because it was so out of the way, and their fans were friggin' nasty up there.
I tell you what, they as much as we think of them as super nice people, sometimes the Mormons get hot when they take them. Brown liquor or clear liquor?
Brown, baby. Clear liquor is for women on a diet, as Ron Swanson once said.
Favorite golf curse word?
Rat
Trevor
fart.
can beep it.
Are we allowed to curse on here?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's curse, but I love calling things a piss missile. Like that was a piss missile right there, just a low flying screamer.
Don't gotta bleep that. That's perfect.
Pete Rose, Hall of Fame, yes or no?
No. He knew the rules. He broke the rules. He was unapologetic about it. It is what it is. It's not like people have forgotten. Yeah, it's not like people have forgotten about Pete Rose. My whole thing on the Hall of Fame is that it should be an honor, should be looked at as an honor as much as it is just a hall of numbers.
Yeah.
And so while they say, well, you're not supposed to judge about off the field stuff, I'm like, yeah, but you got to have some wiggle room in there. Because if O.J. Simpson was not in the Hall of Fame prior to the whole thing with, Nicole, what are you going to do? Put him in going, well, we can't count that. That was off the field. You got to count off the field. It's an honor. They give you a big ceremony and a day. So, yeah, sorry, Pete.
I don't know if you're like Trevor, but if you had to spend time, would you rather be in a duck blind or a tree stand?
Neither. Send me a picture.
Very good. More intriguing NFL significant other, Taylor Swift or this Britney woman that Aaron Rodgers apparently married?
Oh, the Britney thing. I'm all about that. I'm like, when is TMZ going to have a photo? Tell me what you know about her. Where did they meet? What's going on? And some people are like, that's none of your business. And I'm like, I know it's not, but I'm a man who likes gossip, and he's a public figure. You can't just tell me he's married and then not even a photo of her.
Wait,
we even got a grainy photo of supposedly Bigfoot from back.
Yeah, the Loch Ness monster, all kinds of that.
Right. So that's a good one right there. But yeah, I'm also intrigued by the Taylor Swift thing. Butchie swears, he's like, they're in true love. They're going to make babies and it's going to be beautiful. And I'm like, okay. But as I told him today, I go, look, because they were at the hockey game last night. I said, when Taylor Swift decides if she wants to have kids and be mom Taylor Swift, it's going to affect her brand. And don't think for a second that there haven't been discussions about this in terms of, okay, what am I going to be now? And how is this going to affect my millions and millions of fans?
Trev, you had something you wanted to interject?
You were talking about Aaron Rodgers being married. I said on the radio the other day, who said he was married?
He did.
No, he didn't. He said it was a wedding ring and that it's been a few months.
See, you've learned your lesson from the immunized.
He's immunized to marriage. Is that what it is?
He's apparently been matrimonialized.
Okay.
That's the only thing we can.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's good. I should have keyed in on that as well.
Go back and look at that and we'll see. Okay. 2 more. What's the appropriate amount to pay for a Super Bowl ticket?
If it's your team, up to $1,000. Otherwise, $500.
Okay. Finally, give me a historical figure you'd bring back to help explain to somebody how football works.
Oh, got to be Vince Lombardi. Get a seal here. and a seal here. We run it through the alley. Who else would you bring back other than that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking I would like to go really deep. Like I'd like to bring what Socrates, would he be able to explain what football is? Somebody like, I would just wonder if they have any idea, because it just I had I'm out here running with a bunch of Kenyan athletes, and there's a really great kid from New Mexico, from Eritrea. And I asked him something about football, and he's like, I just don't get it. And I said, come on, it's not that hard. And then you think about it, I'm like, yeah, it really doesn't make any sense that we can bash into some guys. Some guys we can bash into really hard. Then sometimes it's too hard to get a flag, and you got to stop and re-ask questions. And then arbitrarily, we've decided 10 yards. And I'm like, you're right. It makes no sense. Go run. I'll follow you. It'll make it much easier.
It really shouldn't work, but it's become the perfect episodic, unscripted reality show in this country, because it's a game that can be latched on by casual fans. Huge following with women. They understand the game. They follow the game. And it doesn't ask too much of you. It's not every day like baseball. And there's so much good drama from Monday through Saturday to the next game. And it goes for 17 weeks. I would say this, and I said this about football before. And Trev, did you play back in the day?
Just till my sophomore year. Then I grew 6'7" and couldn't do it.
John, did you play football at one point, tackle helmets?
No, you said it's like the wipeout course. You see what happens to those people? I want no part of that.
I played 1 year. I was a little league baseball kid. I played 1 year. I was like, Mom, I want to play football. And she wasn't thrilled about it, but I played. Mm-hmm. And it was a bit much for me, to be honest. I was like, I don't think this game is for me, but I played 1 year at least. And I always say that to truly understand football, you have to have had the wind knocked out of you being tackled, whether it's in a game with helmets and pads or in one of your neighborhood games when you're growing up, when you were young enough and rubbery enough that you played full tackle football with no pads, which I think many of us of our generation, John, did.
Yeah, tackle the bomb.
And there was because to me, that's the nuclear core of football. It's dealing with the fear and the pain of, okay, this is a very physical, violent game, and you have to cope with that. That's at the nuclear core. And then there's a lot of stuff.
That said, then I will leave you with this, because I did play 1 year. I played freshman football. And in that regard, I get a lot of mileage on this. And I even did it one time in front of Paul Hornung and Bart Starr and some of the great Packers in an outing. I said, I played for Lombardi too. Looked at me like, yeah, ninth grade, Vince Lombardi Junior High School. Technically, I played for Lombardi. So that was my 1 year. But in 1 year, it was pretty good. I played for Lombardi. Not a lot of dudes saying that.
That's good. That's like when I got to go on a radio junket to a fantasy baseball camp, Cal Ripken's fantasy baseball camp, and I was assigned to Jim Leland's team. So I will drop sometimes, when I used to play for Leland. And I'm like, what? And then I pull out the picture from the fantasy camp with me. And
tell me then when he's doing that, he's got a heater about every
100%. Yeah, 100%. He was fantastic. Talk about a great radio junket, like to get a free entry to this camp, $10,000 camp. Cal Ripken, they're hanging out at night talking to campers. Leland, Hargrove, Phil Garner was one of the managers there. You had full custom uniforms. That was crazy.
That's amazing.
Let me end this episode this way real quick, if I may. In September of 2020, I picked up the phone and called John Anderson and said, hey, I've got a dream to do a podcast, video, audio about the people of Wisconsin. And we talked about it. And John goes, I love it. Let's do it. I don't know if I can do it, ESPN, but I love it. Let's do it. I hung up the phone. I looked at Amanda. And I went, oh, shit. We're doing a podcast. And I have no idea what we're doing. But by God, we're doing it. This is happening.
We don't even have hats yet.
We do now. We've had hats for some
time.
That's
right. I don't have a hat. Yeah, never mind. We're legit. Sorry.
InsideWisconsin.com/shop. Anyway, this thing was happening, and 9 months later, we did it, right? But that was going to happen because John was in, and by God, we're doing this. I was in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. It was a Tuesday. I got a call from iHeart, and they said, hey, we want you to come and fill in for Steve Czaban on the statewide Steve Czaban show. You available? And I said, absolutely. When? Thursday. You got it. I'll be there. I walked back into the pancake place, and I was like, family, bad news. Spring break's over. I'm driving back to Wisconsin today to fill in on the radio because I respect you two that much. So
I ruined your spring break?
No, you did
Jesus,
not.
That's
Tim
a hell
Scott
of a
did.
thing to live with.
Yeah, but
Tim
still,
Scott
I
did.
mean, my being out, I mean, I feel like kind of sort of responsible. And you said this was back in 2020?
No. 2020 was when John and I first started talking about the idea of Inside Wisconsin. This was this year, March of this year. I got a call on a Thursday or a Tuesday morning. Hey, can you fill in for Czabe on Thursday and Friday? Absolutely. Sweet.
Well,
I'll be there. Milwaukee. You got it. Hung up, walked back in, was like, hey, spring break's over. We're leaving. It was a day early. I cut it a day short, but still, it was like, no, we're doing this. And so I relate to John in saying, hey, we're doing this. And I'm honored to fill in for you when you're gone. And thanks for coming on the show. It was really cool.
Yeah, no problem. I usually say when I'm off, people go, you listen, who's on for you? And I go, I don't listen. I said, I just hope the guy who's on for me is worse than I am. That's the only thing. But then I heard you and I was like, oh, damn, this guy's pretty good.
I think you're in good hands.
I'm like, this guy's pretty good. I mean, I don't like it that much. His voice is better than mine too. I don't like that either, but no, it's great.
It doesn't appear you've been Wally pipped. So I feel, by the way, do you know where you were that day? Where were you? Can you give us your whereabouts in which Trevor got his big break?
Where was I that day? Belly up, multiple White Claws deep down in Q, probably something like that.
God bless.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. I appreciate it. Again, set Butch straight if you can for me. I'd appreciate it.
It's an ongoing thing. It's like moving an ATM. It's an all-day deal.
We want you to do a whole lot more than just save money. We want your money to grow, just like your dreams. We want you to achieve financial well-being and the feelings that go along with that. Capital Credit Union, doing the right thing.
Jay, I know you're not here, right? You don't live here. And so those conversations when you're not home and you don't listen to the everyday radio are a little like, oh, great, how am I going to do this? But you knew who he was able to do some research. Clearly, he can chat Wisconsin sports. And it's been a name in, well, I kind of told him, and I know it didn't make him feel old, but I've done work with him. But I mean, I literally grew up listening to him on the radio out of Milwaukee. My uncle Greg and I and Bob and Brian on Laser 103. And I believe his segment started either at 8 a.m. or 8:30. I think it started at 8 and it ended around that 8:30 time frame. Part of my childhood. Really cool.
Don't feel bad. I get that from people too. Oh, I grew up with you. I watched you every morning as I ate my bowl of cereal and left for first grade. And you're like, ugh. But while you get, okay, I get it. That's some age thing. I think he's probably like me. Like you're exactly old as you are, right? He's 57. Yeah. I'm 60, and that's fine. And it's nice to know that maybe somebody was watching and that the work you did was actually, it resonated with somebody. And so I think he's probably happy with that. And now that if you can just go work with them, right? Like that's the one thing you don't want to do is, I remember the first time I worked with a fella who was very prominent. He's since passed away, but I won't disparage. And he was a really well-known figure, right? The first time I worked with Charlie Steiner, I'm like, damn, Charlie Steiner or Dan Patrick. I'm like, okay, he's legit. Like he's legit who we think he is. And then I watch this guy and I'm like, that's it, huh? Wow. That's, didn't put a ton of effort in it and just kind of, and I did that. And I thought, boy, if anybody, I'm not, because I was still early enough in my deal that no young up and comer had sat next to me yet, because I was still kind of that guy. But after 20 some odd years, when I was there and somebody new came, I was like, okay, I am not going to let that person next to me feel that way about me, right? They're going to go, wow, that guy works hard. That guy, does his homework. He does his job. Wow, everything. So I try to do that. So hopefully that's how he is with you. And when you, working in and around him, and I'm still not sure I would, cut the family vacation short, but it's, you do what you got to do. So.
Yeah, it was one of those things where we were going to take our time getting home and make one more stop. And that changed instantaneously. But
the way I did that when they called me to do Sports Center for the first time, which is a story for another day. But I'll just say they called and said, I know you're off, but Norby wants to know if you'll come in and do it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll find a way. I can put off whatever I have, which was nothing. But, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll work. I think I can work a 6th day this week. It's okay. So times in your life.
So that's a story for a different day, but there's always a story for today. And we call it John Wisconsin. What is it today?
So, So I just thought, you know what? It dawned on me. I went to dinner with my son, who's out here with the Arkansas track team and is doing his last meet. And he handed me this card. And I thought, oh, well, that's nice, like your last meet. And I'm like, oh, wait, Father's Day is Sunday. I didn't, because this meet's a week later, and that just didn't dawn on me. And usually for Father's Day, I was like at the US Open a lot. I missed some Father's Days when, or we did a lot of them on Mondays. But oh, it's Father's Day. And I thought, okay, so maybe I've touched on it, maybe I haven't, but this time I can for sure. Because I'm very proud of the children that I have with Colin and Katie and Olivia. But I just thought I might just put a word in for my dad. And so, because he was the best man I know, right? Walter Collins, which is really strange because all my life I was the only Anderson in the house. My mom was, my sister, who's now a Berrigan. So I'm like the only Anderson around, but that's kind of where this ends up. So, my parents got married. I was maybe first grade, I think, is when the wedding was. But everybody in town knew him. And I've told you that before. I come back, whether it's for the draft or I come back for when I came back for the Packers 100th year anniversary. And I have all these people, John. And then it's always ends. It's not like we see on SportsNet. It was like, I knew your dad. Your dad put in my basement. He put it I'm like, yeah, he did it to everybody. Like, yeah, I know. He put in most of the basements in this stupid town. Like, it's crazy like that. But that was always great. And everybody knew him and everybody liked him because he was a fair and he was an honest businessman. And he would go out of his way to do what he could for you. But he's the guy that raised me. And we always joke about his tomato plants, which he loved. And I always say some of those he grew as seedlings, and some of them he just would get them and transplanted them. And I was, in his life, I was a transplant, right? But he raised me like I was just every other tomato plant he had. And he took me to Brewer games, and he didn't like baseball, but he'd take me and he'd sit there in the sun because it was warm, and he was good with that. He never failed to say that he was proud of me. I think he was super happy that I didn't take over his construction business, that I didn't have to work in a hole, because it was hard jobs when he did that. And the number of times, whether it was when I had a little success in high jumping in high school and people go, oh, Mr. Anderson, or when I came around and he'd go, oh, Mr. Anderson. And he never balked at that. He just, yes, that was fine. It was no problem. And I remember we went on vacation one time and we were down in Florida, and I met this person at the hotel for the first time that were close to my family. And he said, oh, this is my son, John. He goes, I can see the resemblance. And we just chuckled because there's no resemblance whatsoever. And he made the family waffles. We got he was just grew up on a truck farm there on the east side of Green Bay, right out by Morgan L. Martin School. There's now a highway that went through all the acreage that his dad had that we used to run around endlessly in. And one year we got him a waffle maker. And when he passed away, that was the first thing my daughter Katie said, who make the waffles now? Like, it was just gut wrenching. But the best way I want to tell you this story to remember this man and kind of pay tribute here in Father's Day, and kind of hopefully it shaped me in some way, other than, by the way, his name was Walter Collins, and my son's name is Colin. If you haven't made that connection, that's where that came from.
There you go.
But after a year or two, my mother went up and said, do you think you would like to adopt Leslie and John? Right? My sister is 3 years old. And he looked at my mom and he said, no. And you think, well, that's not. And he said, their father passed away and it was terrible. And I will be their father, but they should have their dad's name. That's who they are. And John should have Kenny's name so that there are Andersons and he is not forgotten. And so that's who my dad is. So I'm here. I'm John Anderson because of him. And that's a heck of a thing.